Armand had always been the sort of boy who took things apart just to see how they worked. By the age of 10, he had mended his mother's radio, built a torch from an old jam jar, and rewired the doorbell so that it played the first 3 notes of his favorite song. So when his uncle, Pak Hassan, asked him to help clear out the cluttered workshop behind the old kampong-style house, Armand did not grumble for a single second. He loved that workshop. It smelled of oil, sawdust, and rust, and every dusty shelf held some forgotten treasure. That Saturday morning, while shifting a stack of crates near the back wall, his fingers brushed against something cold and metal hidden beneath a moth-eaten blanket. He tugged the cloth away and froze. There, glinting in a thin bar of sunlight, sat a strange machine the size of a kettle, covered in tiny dials, copper coils, and a single brass lever marked with words he could not yet read. Armand carried the machine into the light and rubbed the brass plate clean with his sleeve. The faded letters slowly appeared. Weather regulator, prototype. His heart began to thud. He turned a dial marked sun, and with a soft hum, the copper coils began to glow a gentle gold. Outside, the gray morning sky seemed to brighten, just a little. He nudged the dial back and the brightness faded. He tried again, and again the clouds thinned and warm sunshine spilled across the courtyard. When he found Pak Hassan and breathlessly told him, his uncle only chuckled and ruffled his hair.
That old thing? I built it years ago, more a dream than a machine. I could never get it to work properly. And besides, the weather is not ours to command.
Yet Armand, watching the sunlight dance on the wall, was no longer listening at all. Armand could not sleep that night. The machine sat on his desk, humming faintly, and his mind raced with all that it might do. By morning, he had cleaned every dial and oiled every coil until the little device gleamed like new. He discovered 4 settings in all: sun, rain, wind, and clear. Each one, when nudged gently, seemed to tug at the sky above his block of flats, though never very far. Armand told himself he would only ever use it to help. That very week, his chance arrived. The neighborhood's annual sports day had been planned for Saturday, and the forecast promised gray skies and a steady drizzle. Children all over the estate were glum. The bouncy castle would be canceled. The races run in the mud. Armand smiled to himself, a secret electric thrill running through him. He alone, he thought, held the power to save the day. Saturday dawned exactly as the forecast had warned. A low, sulking sky the color of wet cement. Families gathered at the field beneath dripping umbrellas, and the organizer, Mr. Rajan, was already on the phone debating whether to call the whole thing off. Up on his balcony, hidden from view, Armin set the machine on the railing and slowly turned the dial to sun. The coils blazed gold. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, far above, the gray began to peel apart like curtains being drawn back. Sunlight poured down in golden ribbons. The puddles glittered, and a great cheer rose from the field below. The bouncy castle was inflated. The races went ahead on firm, dry ground. Armin watched it all from above, his chest swelling with pride. He had done that. He had reached up and rearranged the very sky, and nobody below had the faintest idea who to thank. The triumph of sports day only sharpened Armin's appetite for more. In the weeks that followed, he began to use the machine for small, kindly things, telling himself each time that it was harmless. When the community garden wilted under a long, baking dry spell, he nudged the dial to rain and watched, delighted, as a gentle shower revived the drooping tomato plants and the parched bougainvillea. Old Madame Lim, who tended the garden, declared it a small miracle and thanked the heavens. When the void deck grew unbearably stuffy on a windless afternoon, Armin summoned a cool breeze that set the laundry dancing on every line. Each time, he felt like a kind of quiet guardian, watching over his neighborhood from above. Yet somewhere along the way, without his quite noticing, the questions changed. He stopped asking, "What does the garden need?" and began asking, "What do I want today?" The first truly selfish use crept up on Armin so quietly that he barely recognized it for what it was. He had been looking forward all month to a cycling outing with his friends to the East Coast. They had planned the route, packed their snacks, and pumped their tires. The night before, though, dark clouds rolled in and the radio warned of heavy rain till evening. Armin's stomach knotted with disappointment. Then his eyes drifted to the machine on his desk, and a small, sly voice whispered inside him, "Why should the rain spoil his day?" He had used the machine for the garden, for sports day, for the whole neighborhood. Surely he had earned one favor for himself. He turned the dial firmly to clear and held it there longer than ever before. The coils glowed fierce and bright. By morning, the rain clouds had been pushed far away, and the sky over the entire district stretched a hard, cloudless blue. The cycling trip was glorious. The boys raced along the sunlit coast, the seas sparkling beside them, and Armin felt like the cleverest person alive. Yet when he returned home that evening, the first small cracks in his happiness began to show. Madame Lim was standing in the community garden, her shoulders sagging, staring at her vegetable patch. The rain she had been counting on for days had simply never come. Instead, the fierce, unbroken sun had scorched the seedlings she had planted only that week.
I do not understand it. The forecast was so sure of rain. Now look, all my young plants, burnt to a crisp.
Armand opened his mouth, then closed it again. A cold, guilty weight settled in his stomach. The rain he had pushed away to keep his own day dry was the very rain her garden had so desperately needed. Armin told himself it was a one-off, a small price for one perfect day, and he promised he would be more careful in future. The truth, however, was that the machine had begun to feel less like a tool and more like a habit he could not put down. The following weekend, he wanted a still, sunny afternoon to test his new kite. So once more, he reached for the dial and held back the clouds. He did not stop to wonder where that water might have fallen, or who might have been waiting for it. Higher up, beyond his balcony and his narrow view of the sky, something larger was beginning to shift. Weather does not sit in neat little boxes above one boy's flat. It sweeps and swirls across whole regions, knitted together by invisible threads. Each time Armin tugged one thread to suit himself, another, somewhere out of sight, was pulled tight and snapped. The unintended consequences spread further than Armin could ever have guessed. Across the estate, gardens that had once flourished now drooped and yellowed, robbed of their rain week after week. The reservoir level, the newspapers reported, had dipped worryingly low, and the town council put up notices urging everyone to save water. Birds that usually flocked to the flowering trees grew scarce, for the parched branches bore little fruit. One humid evening, Armin overheard two neighbors talking by the lift.
Strangest weather I can remember. Sunshine when we beg for rain, and a dead, breathless heat that never lifts.
Armin pressed himself into the shadows, his face hot with shame. He had wanted only a few perfect days for himself, and yet here, rippling outward like rings on a pond, was a whole neighborhood slowly drying up. And not one single person knew that the cause was a boy and his secret machine. moment that finally broke through Armin's excuses came on the day of the Mid-Autumn Lantern celebration. Madame Lim's daughter Priya had spent weeks organizing it. A grand evening at the void deck with homemade lanterns, mooncakes, and a small stage for the children to sing. Yet Armin, careless and tired, had left the machine on the wind setting overnight, meaning only to cool his stuffy room. By the next evening, a relentless howling wind was tearing through the estate. Lanterns were ripped from their strings and dashed against the walls. The paper stage backdrop took flight like a startled bird. Priya stood in the middle of it all, close to tears, clutching the remains of a lantern she had made by hand.
Everything is ruined. Months of work and the wind just took it.
Armin, watching from the edge of the crowd, had never felt so small in all his life. That night, Armin sat alone in his room with the machine glowing softly before him, and at last he forced himself to think it all the way through. He laid the pieces out in his mind like a row of dominoes: the scorched seedlings, the dropping reservoir, the vanished birds, the ruined lanterns, and Priya's tears. Every single one led back by a clear and unbroken line to a dial he had turned for his own comfort. He had imagined himself a guardian of the neighborhood, when really he had been its careless master, treating the whole sky as his personal toy. Pak Hassan's words returned to him now, no longer the grumble of an old man, but a warning he had been too proud to hear. Armin understood, with a clarity that made his cheeks burn, that he could not control everything for himself without, somewhere down the line, hurting someone else. Armin knew at once what he had to do, though his hands trembled at the thought of it. The machine was the most extraordinary thing he had ever owned. A power that could clear the heavens or summon the rain. A treasure beyond anything his friends could dream of. To switch it off forever felt like saying goodbye to a part of himself. He could so easily keep it, he reasoned, and simply promise to be wiser, to use it only for good. Even as the thought formed, however, he knew it was the same hollow promise he had made to himself a dozen times before, and broken every time. The plain truth was that as long as the machine sat humming on his desk, the temptation to nudge the sky just one more time for himself would always be there. Real responsibility, he realized, was not about using power carefully. Sometimes it meant choosing not to hold that power at all. With a deep, steadying breath, Armin picked up the machine and carried it out onto the balcony, where the night air still carried the last gusts of his careless wind. He rested his thumb on the brass lever, the one he had never dared to pull, the one whose worn letters now plainly read "off." For a heartbeat, he hesitated, the whole glittering future the machine promised flashing before him. Then, gently and firmly, he pushed the lever home. The copper coils dimmed from gold to a dull, lifeless gray. The faint hum that had filled his room for weeks faded into silence, and the machine settled into his hands, suddenly heavy and cold, like a stone pulled from a river. Above him, the wind sighed once and then dropped away to nothing. Armin stood very still, listening to an ordinary, unhurried sky go about its business, and felt something he had not felt in a long while, a quiet, clean sense of peace. In the days that followed, the weather over the estate slowly found its own rhythm again, without Armin's meddling hand. The clouds drifted in when they pleased and emptied themselves over the thirsty gardens. The wind came and went as it always had, neither summoned nor banished. One gray, drizzly morning, Armin spotted Madame Lim back in the community garden, and his heart lifted to see her tilting her face up to the falling rain with a smile of pure relief.
At last, some proper weather. My new seedlings will love this.
Armand smiled and waved, and though she would never know the part he had played in her troubles, he felt the smallest weight lift from his shoulders. The rain that pattered on his head was nobody's choice and everybody's gift, and somehow that made it more wonderful than any cloudless sky he had ever conjured. Armand did not throw the machine away, nor did he hide it in shame at the back of a drawer. Instead, he wrapped it carefully and carried it back to Pak Hassan's workshop, where it had waited all those years.
I think this belongs here. I switched it off. For good.
His uncle studied him for a long moment, then nodded slowly, a knowing warmth in his eyes.
You learned the lesson I never quite managed to put into words. It is one thing to build something powerful. It is a far harder, far braver thing to know when not to use it.
He clapped Armin on the shoulder.
Most people who taste that kind of power never learn to let it go. You did, and you are only 10.
Armin flushed, but this time it was not with shame. For the first time in weeks, he felt he had truly earned a little pride. Armin went on tinkering and inventing, of course, for that was simply who he was. He built a clever little sensor that warned Madame Lim's garden when the soil grew too dry, and a wind chime that played a tune whenever a real breeze passed through. Even so, he never again sought to command the sky, and whenever clouds gathered over a planned outing, he learned to shrug and make the best of whatever weather came. He had discovered something that no machine could ever have taught him: that the world is woven together far more tightly than it looks, and that nothing we do, however small or however secret, happens entirely on its own. To reach up and bend the sky to your single wish is not strength at all. Real power, Armin finally understood, lies in caring enough about everyone beneath that sky to leave it, gratefully and humbly, exactly as it is.